Hello, good morning. This is Thiago Soto, Chief Marketing Officer of CoVID. Thanks for joining this webinar called Remote Banking in the COVID Era. Now I'm sharing my screen. I hope you can see it. The webinar has been thought to last around 30 minutes. At the end of the webinar, we will have some time for answering your questions. As we are using GoToWebinar, please use the chat section that you have in front of you if you want to send any question or whatever related with this webinar. In front of me, I have a window, okay, and I can see these questions in real time, so I can try to answer as soon as we receive it. If this is not possible, I will have some minutes at the end of the webinar to try to answer all the questions you have, okay? Basically, what you need to know for the agenda for this webinar is that we are going to have two parts, okay? Two sections. The first one is related with customer care. So we call this section using the new reality to boost. This is the second one. The first one is moving to the new customer experience for the COVID era. So we are going to talk about customer care and how the COVID is changing some of the paradigms that we have for customer care in banks. And the second one, the last one, is related with employee collaboration, using the new reality to boost employee collaboration. Okay. Before these two sections, I have some slides. Just first to try to introduce our company, especially for those of you who are not familiar with CoVID. And second, to try to explain which is the current situation in terms of real-time communications in banks. And finally, to explain which are the current trends related with the adoption of new real-time communication technologies. Okay, so moving to the first slide in order to be on time. Basically, what you need to know about CoVID is that, well, this is the motto of our company. We craft communication technologies. Basically, we use different protocols and open solutions in the market in order to create products and real-time communication solutions that are not currently covered by the traditional manufacturers and vendors. Okay? So we feel comfortable working with, trying to defeat challenge with working with the challenge that we may have related with real-time communications. Okay. So in terms of our bullet points, what you need to know is that we are headquartered in Spain with operations worldwide. Typically, we operate and we have sales presence in Western Europe and North and South America. Okay. We have been working on real-time communications for a while, since we started in 2006. And since 2012, we started to build our own products based on WebRTC, basically because this technology was launched in this year and in 2012, and this is when we started to build our own solutions. So later, if I have more time, I will try to explain more detail, which is our contribution to some of the challenge and use cases that I will try to explain. But in moving to the next slide, here I am trying to introduce which is the current situation for banks since the crisis especially since the crisis in 2008. Well, we know at least in some countries in Europe and South America, at least, that some of the banks have suffered different process related with mergers and acquisitions. And we understand that the current situation related with the COVID era is forcing to have even more acquisitions and mergers in the short term. So for sure, when we are dealing with this process in banks, well, it's a challenge in terms of voice interconnection. So working with different vendors is something that is always challenging, especially when you try to keep your own numbering, your own policies for routing or whatever. For sure, this is something that you can do, and you can manage using session border controllers, because this is an element that is supporting different implementations of the ship stack by different PBX vendors. But at the same time, you need to have some skills, some professional service, some experts in order to help to manage the concerns and problems that you will have related with numbering, okay, and also with routing policies. Second is related with another challenge. The second one is related with teleworkers. Okay, now, especially during the last months, some banks that were traditionally working on-prem or in the agencies, in the branches, now they are moving or they are allowing their employees to work from home, so to become teleworkers. And in terms of security, for sure, this is something challenging for the bank, because some of them were not differing the calls, they were not using secure signaling or media for voice calling. And also, well, they need to allow incoming traffic, real-time traffic, through their session border controllers or firewalls. And security is something that is forcing IT managers to change some of the policies, the internal policies they have. The third challenge is related with online branches. In the past, banks used to have call centers and staff that were providing remote services, and others that were providing on-prem service from branches. Now, we understand that those employees that are still working in these branches, some days are going to be teleworkers, but other days that are working from the branches, they will need to have new tools in order to connect with customers that are not open to visit the branch. So they want to have access to the same service that they have in the past, physically in the branch, from home, in a remote way. And finally, the fourth challenge is related with service compliance. And in terms of service compliance, well, it's something that this is not new, because this is the same regulation that we have in the past. I mean, GDPR for data protection, PCI, or MiFID in the case of Europe. But the challenge is to adapt all these regulations to the new reality. Now we are going to deal with customers and employees that are working from different places, and it's going to be more difficult to achieve the same compliance that we have in the past. In terms of, moving to the next slide, in terms of which is the current situation for real-time communications today. Well, one of the key points here is we were working for a long time in SIP trunks. So we installed our first session border controller in 2007, and we thought at that time that in 3 or 4 years, all the companies will have all the traffic routed through session border controllers in order to manage interconnection and security. But today, the current situation is that not more than 25 or 30% of the trunks today are based on SIP. So we still have a lot of PSTN-based service and using legacy solutions like H323 protocols or whatever. What is changing is that, well, for sure, banks are adopting sector ranking as a way to connect with carriers, to connect with branches or other banks. Okay. But what is changing in the last months is related with the adoption of virtualization, public clouds, and also unified communication solutions as a service, especially Teams, that is dramatically changing the situation in terms of adoption of technologies by these banks. This together with new technologies, and today, despite WebRTC was launched in 2012, I think that I can say that that this year, probably the last one, also this year is a good one for this technology, because this is a good one, the best one in order to defeat some of the challenges that we are currently suffering thanks to COVID. Related with Teams, and this is something related with virtualization, public clouds, digital transformation, policies and strategy, whatever. This is the winner of COVID. Okay, most of the enterprises, not only banks, are moving to Microsoft Teams as the new PBX, okay, the new provider for unified communication. Just see that in 2 months, from March to May, if I'm not wrong, they moved from 32 million users, daily active users, to 75. I don't have the numbers for today, but the adoption of Microsoft Teams is really surprising. Okay, so it's I don't remember in the last 10 or 15 years such a huge migration of other vendor technologies to a specific one, like the case of Microsoft Teams. For sure, Microsoft Teams is a good technology, okay, for collaboration. And despite banks are still seeing the Microsoft Teams as a complement to their existing PBX platform, or as a solution that is not enough, especially if you want to deal with call centers or integration with CRMs or other things. No? I will try to explain later which is the role of WebRTC working with Microsoft Teams, especially in banks. Okay. In terms of our solutions, what you need to know is that we have something that we call Quovis WAC from WebRTC Application Controller. That basically is these are the elements that you need in order to deploy a WebRTC service in an enterprise or a telco. That includes an application server in order to manage the application, user management, service enablement, and so on. A media server, that is the element that we are going to use for multi-conferencing, for call ciphering, and also for call recording. And an interconnection broker, that is the element that we use to connect with SIP or third-party elements. Okay. Using these elements, well, we are exposing some APIs and SDKs to build your own application, but we have our own that is called Quovis Collaborator, that you can see this element as a unified communication suite that can complement your Microsoft Teams strategy or your legacy solution. Okay. So basically, well, what I was trying to explain before, and basically in terms of our strategy, we are trying to deal with two things. First, to provide more efficient tools for customer care, and second, to improve employee communications. Okay, so as these are going to be the 2 points that we are going to discuss today, let me move to the first part of the presentation. Okay, here we are going to talk about customer care and how to improve customer experience for the new reality. Okay, well, what you need to know here is that, well, this is something challenging. Here we're going to talk about how branches, employee that is working in a branch of the bank, needs to adapt to the new reality. And today, we know that these employees, probably some days they want to work from home, some days they're going to work from the branch of bank, but at the end, they need to get in contact with customers that are going to be physically in the branch, and also those that are going to be from home or from any other place. So we need to provide additional tools for these employees in order to communicate. Basically, unified communication tools that makes possible to make voice, video calls, to collaboration, share screens, share documents, whatever, okay? But keeping in mind that you need branded tools, so you're going to need to have your own logos, colors, or to be fully integrated with your existing solutions, and also to keep security in mind, okay? To have the same security that you have working from the branch. And in the other hand, you will have your customers, and your customers are willing to get in contact with the bank, but with no efforts. So they are not open to install applications, to have an ad hoc call with an employee of the bank. They are not willing to change the device in order to make the video call work. So we need solutions to support zero installation that can work in any device, in any OS, in any browser. Okay, and for this, WebRTC is a really good to know. Basically, because WebRTC, as you can imagine, has been thought to run in your desktop browser, but during the last years, most browsers have adopted WebRTC and all the methods behind WebRTC. That is what I'm going to explain in the next slide. And in parallel, we have options for those that are that prefer to have an installed application in the device. Okay, this is probably for security or whatever. That the browser is not a possibility, but the employee of the bank can use the application working, running as a local application in Windows, for instance. And also we have the possibility to use WebRTC from a browser in Android, in iOS, and also as a hybrid and native application in Android and iOS. We have Collaborator with all these versions, Voice Collaborator. Also, we have SDKs in order to build adult applications working in all these platforms. Probably you remember to test WebRTC in the past. You remember that it was not so possible to make WebRTC work in Internet Explorer or in legacy versions of Windows. And also that Safari was blocking WebRTC. But this is not longer valid. Okay, now WebRTC is working in most of the devices, OS, and browsers. So I can say that I think that even more 98 or 99% of the possibilities of the reality of the users is supporting WebRTC. So you don't need to if your customer is going to use a device that is supporting this, because well, they're going to use something that is valid for sure. Okay. Basically, in terms of the use case, we have different possibilities here. Imagine, for instance, that you have an ongoing call through the PSTN. So you, as an employee of the bank, you have decided to call your customer through the PSTN. So you have dialed the number and you have placed a call with the mobile device of your customer. But when you are talking with the customer, you realize that that it could be useful to move this call to WebRTC in order to share your screen, to have a video call, to share documents or whatever. This is so easy as to send an SMS to the telephone number of the customer, the guy that is in the other part of the call. And when the customer receives the SMS, just clicking the link that you are sharing a web link, just clicking this link, both of you can accurate this ongoing call to WebRTC and take advantage of all the features that WebRTC is currently supporting. This flexibility in terms of upgrading an ongoing call is general for WebRTC. So you can build clickable buttons, banners, QR codes, or whatever, okay? Just to start a session with your customer, or invite your customer to get directly in contact with you, okay? And this flexibility is general for WebRTC. But this is not all, as it's also possible to use WebRTC as a communication component or communication layer in your existing native or hybrid application. Okay, imagine you as a bank, you have your electronic banking application, and you are willing to add a feature in order to help your customers to get in contact with support, with customer care, in case they are experimenting any type of problem from the application, okay, from the native application in the mobile device. So this is not only adding this possibility, because it's also possible to share with the agent that is going to provide support. It's possible to share contextual information. So when the agent is receiving the call, he or she can knows who is calling, knows that the customer is using the application, which is the type of device, which is the language that is the default one in the application, and which is probably the problem that they have, okay, because you can have all this information, get all this information about the experience from the user directly to the agent before answering the call. Okay, so this is going to help to provide better support. This type of integration with native applications for sure is also valid for those internal solutions of the bank. Think in applications like CRMs, ERPs, or any other bank software. Okay? It's really easy to integrate clickable buttons to detect phone numbers and to add automatically a link in order to place a call, to use or when you're placing a call from Salesforce or from your CRM, to automatically log this call and add the report and recordings of this call, because, well, this is something that I forgot to mention before, but for sure it's possible to record everything, and this is important for MiFID compliance also. Well, this is also, as I mentioned in the previous slide, that it's really easy to integrate with your electronic banking application. This is easy as well to integrate with your existing software apps. Okay. This is supporting different use cases. One that is pretty popular is to manage customer ID validation or verification. One example that is pretty popular is customer onboarding. The idea to be sure of the identity of the user when he or she wants to open a bank account as a new customer. And basically, the type of process that we have here is that the customer is sharing via web a picture of the ID card or passport, and after they have sent the picture, automatically the web plays a video call with the agent, who is asking again to show the document to the camera, just to be sure that you have the document in front of you and it's a good one, and also to check that the picture in your card looks similar to your face. So this plays the role of a second factor of authentication when you want to be sure about the identity of the user, and when it's not so valid to make an automatic validation. Okay, so this is to have a real human here provides an additional factor in order to be more secure about the identity of the user. This type of examples of video calling, okay, are valid not only for customer onboarding or credit card activation, that is the image that we have here, or any other related with security. It's also valid to be more, well, to have a better relationship with the customer. Okay, we know that in the past video calling was only used for premium banking, but now today, after the COVID disease, video calling is more valid today, okay, because you want to be near to your customers to understand better which are the concerns and problems of your customers and how you can help them. And we understand that it's better to have a video call than just a voice call with them. So video call is more valid today than in the past. Okay? Well, I mentioned before that this type of WebRTC sessions can be recorded in order to be fully compatible or compliant with MiFID. Well, we have detected a trend that supports, in order to support SIP-REC from PBX, media servers, and session border controllers in the past. Today is even a challenge because, remember, we are dealing with teleworkers. We need to be sure that we are receiving the calls, but we at the same time need to record everything. So this is a challenge here that we are helping some customers in order to keep the same capacities that they have in the past in order to record calls when they need to deal with teleworkers. And WebRTC is providing not more complexity here, but you need also to have the possibility not only to record voice, but also to record video. Okay, we are moving to video. We are adding more video capabilities, and probably the voice recorders that we have are not enough. So we have here, for instance, we have our own voice and video recorder for WebRTC that is helping those customers that had a voice recorder, but that was not supporting video, and they wanted to have their own solution for this. And finally, well, some challenges are also related with some structures that in the past were not possible, but now the banks are opening during the last months. That is the possibility to receive DTMF tones in order to provide credit card numbers, especially for those customers that want to pay through a voice call. And here the idea that is mandatory to remove these digits, these tones from the agent side in order to be compliant with PCI. And this is something that we are also, we are helping some customers that want to solve these problems. So moving to the next point, I think that I think that we have 2 or 3 questions here, but I prefer to answer these questions at the end of the webinar. The other ones, I think that more or less, I think that you have the answer for them. The second part is related with employee collaboration, and just I think that I will explain this part in not more than 5 minutes. Remember that I have explained before about the new reality with mergers and acquisitions. Banks now, they have different vendors that for UC, for unified communications. Some of them have Cisco and they are adopting Microsoft Teams, but they want to have also video calling solution like from Zoom or a WebRTC solution. They want to integrate legacy solutions like Access or H323 platforms. They wanted to connect to different vendors, to different carriers, sorry, to validate users using active directories and to force simultaneous calling to different endpoints, one from Teams and run from Cisco, and when someone is calling you, you want to receive the incoming call in both solutions. So all this complexity is part of what we are trying to provide with our own solutions. Okay? And for sure, there's a challenge here related with numbering, with policies, with routing, with a lot of things. And you need to have some experts here in order to deal with this complexity. Before, I prefer to move to the next slide before, just to give you an example about how WebRTC can work together with SIP. Here is your PBX, and here is our WebRTC platform. And basically, this is really common to have a WebRTC user that wants to get in contact with an employee, and this employee has 3 endpoints. Has one that is connected to your existing PBX, and 2 other endpoints that are based on WebRTC that run in a browser and as a mobile application. And imagine that you want to, or you prefer to have simultaneous ringing in these 3 endpoints. When Alice is calling to Bob, what is requested is to make a simultaneous ringing in these 3 endpoints. Basically, here what we are doing is relying all the routing in the existing PBX. So here the PBX has 3 registers. So a user with 3 registrations, and when someone is calling to this user, and this PBX is launching the call to the 3 endpoints. And when you are answering the call in one of the endpoints, is the one that gets the call. Okay, but all the traffic is being routed through the sub-switch, and this is providing what was explained here. Is providing some advantage, basically, that you are keeping all the information about KPIs, workforce management in the terms of call centers and so on in the same platform, and also all the intelligence related with call routing or all the decisions in the existing PBX. So this approach is pretty popular, and it's valid when you want to have and you want to use your existing solution for routing, and just use WebRTC as an enabler, as a complement, or your existing solution in order to provide mobility or multi-device support, like in the example that we have here. So basically, just to give you an example of a typical unified communication suite for teleworkers and so on, is what we have here in front of us. That is based on Collaborator, the unified communication suite that we have. Basically, it's a tool that, like the ones that you can manage, supporting voice, video, any other type of collaboration, together with the contact list. Here we have different possibilities to use the local agenda of the device in case of a mobile phone, to create or to have your own contact list locally for the user, and also to federate with an existing element, imagine an Active Directory, and to get the contact list from the Active Directory. Okay, so different possibilities are possible. Here you see online, offline. This is basically because we are supporting presence, so we can know which users are connected or not. No? And here we are supporting other enterprise capabilities, like scheduling meetings in order to send ICS attachments to add the meeting to your agenda. We support call recording, that's explained before, and lots of multimedia capabilities. And this is helping those banks that prefer to move to teleworking strategy. That WebRTC is pretty valid for this, okay, because it's adding new collaboration features to your existing platform. But also this is complemented by adapting the session border controllers in order to support access modes, okay, in order to allow traffic to be routed from outside to your network, of your network to your PBX. Okay, so dealing with these complexities is what we are providing. And this is also important that WebRTC can run in virtual desktops. Probably banks are not the first customer or the first adopter or BDI strategies, but is something that is important to know. Okay, those of you that have a strategy in order to support dump devices like those based on Citrix or VMware Horizon, where WebRTC is working from the browser of the device. So you don't need to have an additional device to manage the voice calls or video calls. So you don't need to provide a desk phone to the user. He or she can use the browser in order to place calls and to receive incoming calls. Okay, this is something that is really interesting. And finally, the last one is related with, this is the last slide, and before the closing remarks. Another thing that is important is related with GDPR. And the key problem that we detected here is related with the former adoption of WhatsApp as a tool for corporate communications. So WhatsApp is running in some corporate mobile devices in banks as a tool that is really valid in order to get in contact with other employees and customers. But for sure, this is not valid if you want to be compliant with GDPR. Okay? Because you are uploading your local agenda to your device to WhatsApp that is not placed in Europe, and you don't have a real control about it. And for sure, you don't have all the OKs, all the agreement of all the contacts on your agenda that you are sharing their personal information, name and telephone number to a third party, in this case WhatsApp. Okay. So what we have is based on Collaborator, the mobile application of Collaborator, user interface, user experience that is pretty similar to what you have to WhatsApp, but this can run in the servers of the bank. So you don't need to be afraid or concerned about losing information. Everything is being stored locally, the local agenda of your users together with the chat history. So no third parties can be managing this type of information. So in order to be or to stay compliant with GDPR could be a good possibility, especially if your employees are worried or interested in having experiences similar to what they have with WhatsApp. So moving to the next slide, that is the last one, is related with lessons learned or closing remarks. Remember that you can use the questions in order to the chat section in order to submit your questions, okay? And basically, we have a current situation where customers are demanding more flexibility today, and for sure, banks are not completely ready. For instance, are the employees of a branch of your bank ready to schedule to send an invite to a customer in order to have a voice or video call? Well, for sure, your customers are open to this, and your employees, I think that are not, or some of your employees are not ready, or they don't have the tools in order to manage this. For sure, something that is important is to try to remove all the process that require a physical presence of your customers in the branch of the bank and move everything to online. Okay. WebRTC is helping on this. Remember, it is running any device. You don't need to install anything in case you are using a browser. So this is valid for customer adoption, especially in those calls that are going to be ad hoc, that are not going to be just once. So it makes no sense to force your customers to install something if they are going to make just one call. And also be ready to the new reality of your employees, to provide tools that are really easy to adopt and that can work in case they're working from home. Okay, so everything must be ready in order to place voice video calls working from home. But this is something that is important to be. It's important to be fully compliant with the local regulation. Okay, we have some regulation that is valid for different countries in Europe, but at the same time we are working for some customers that need to adapt to the local regulation. Just to give you an example, as we are based in Spain, we have a special regulation in terms of customer onboarding, so we have adapted our solutions in order to be compliant with this. So basically, these are the lessons learned. I have a bunch of questions here, and let me check. I think that some of them have already answered, but basically we have 3-4 questions that are asked about if we are going to share the slides. Yes, well, if I'm not wrong, I think that this webinar has been recorded, so probably we are going to upload these recordings to YouTube or any other platform, and you will receive the link in order to watch this recording later. Okay? But in any case, we will try to share these slides with you later today or tomorrow. Okay, we will. We have here one question that was probably before the slide about virtual desktops. Yes, WebRTC is working in virtual desktops, and is really convenient. Okay, because you don't need to install anything there, and it's working just giving access to the camera and microphone from the device of the user. No? So it's a good solution if in case you want to well, in case you have this type of strategy. Okay, so you don't need to add another device in order to manage calls. Okay, with the virtual desktop should be more than enough. Questions about interconnection of PBXs with Microsoft Teams? Yes, well, I think that today there are different session border controllers that are supporting Microsoft Teams, and it should be easy to interconnect. If you are adopting Microsoft Teams, as I understand from your question, this is going to depend which is the strategy that you're using, if you're going to use direct routing or not, if you're going to have the traffic through the cloud of Microsoft or not. It depends if you will need to use ad hoc codecs and to make some type of transcoding in the element that is going to manage this interconnection. Questions about interconnecting voice, video, or other things with Teams today, for the moment, at least in our case, it's only possible to interconnect voice from WebRTC to Teams. But I think that we have a roadmap to support other multimedia capabilities in the future. Okay. About recordings, we have a question about SIP-Rec. How can I know if I'm supported in SIP-Rec? Well, you need to support SIP-Rec in the element that is going to manage the traffic, typically the PBX or the session border controller, and you need to support SIP-Rec as well in your recorder. Well, this depends on your solution. I think that most of the solutions are already supporting this, but remember that, I don't remember the name, but I think that was a protocol that is SIP-R or something like that, is the previous one to SIP-Rec. And if you don't have the your recorder with the last version, probably you are not supporting SIP-Rec, but I strongly recommend you to support this these protocols. We have questions here about the support of WebRTC in Edge, as this is the browser that is the one that is supported in the bank. Edge is currently supported WebRTC, at least for some of the basic communications tools, including voice, video, and chat. So it's not going to be a problem. You may experiment some problems maybe with screen sharing and other functionalities, okay, but at least for the basic, what you expect in order to have a session with a customer should be valid, okay. I'm checking the rest of the questions. I think that more or less has been answered during the the webinar. I have here one more about WhatsApp. That is not completely sure if WhatsApp could be compliant with GDPR. Just consider that when a user, imagine you're an employee of the bank, is installing WhatsApp in the mobile device of the bank, he or she is uploading the local agenda to WhatsApp. So this is not valid in order to be compliant with GDPR. I recommend you to take a look to the blog of our website, or maybe I can share with you later today more information about what you need to be compliant with GDPR and why this type of solutions like WhatsApp, Telegram, and others are not no longer valid. Okay. And I think that the rest of the questions are too specific, or I think that maybe we can put questions here that I prefer to answer by email later. So I think that that's all from my side. Remember, we will try to share these slides and recordings later. We will try to share this later today if it's possible, or if not, maybe tomorrow. Okay. Do not hesitate to get in contact with us in case you have any type of question. Okay, I think that we have the possibility to work with lots of banks in different countries, and we probably know which are your concerns, and we will helping other banks before. Okay, so we can help to provide probably some answers to the problems that you are experimenting. That's all from my side. Thank you very much for your time. As mentioned, do not hesitate to get in contact with us if you have any further question. I hope you have a nice day. Thanks a lot for